Here with Leah. We've got the fancy backgrounds. How are you doing, Leah? I know you've had a busy week. You have things going on.
I have things going on that are very real and human, that are not AI. But yes, lots of really exciting things happening. Yeah.
I don't understand this.
My own world building in real life, not using AI. It's really good. It's finally spring here on Cape Cod, and all the leaves came out, and it's been beautiful. So my spirits have been very, very happy. Very good.
That's great. That was great. I was doing a TikTok live last night because I'm an influencer and all, and I'm like, I completely lost track of time. I was like 2.5 hours in, and my wife comes in and she's like, "You got to take the garbage out." I'm like, "Well, I guess reality interrupts AI, So,
well, the thing about AI is it's all happening so fast, and there's so many exciting things to know that I could spend all day learning AI. Like, there's so much that life starts to feel a little bit like, wait, what do I need to do that's so human? Okay, what am I programming? What am I doing? What am I prompting? So there's this sort of duality happening for me that I'm noticing.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Okay, so this is the AI Salon. We are, if you're new here, we are a community of curious people trying to figure out what the hell is going on with generative AI. We've got a LinkedIn group where if you're kind of more leaning on the business side, you can go hang out there. We've also got a Discord community where you can play with Midjourney and ask questions and geek out and learn stuff and geek out.
Can I just jump in for 1 second? And I want to say the Discord community is incredible. And if you post something on the Discord community, people will respond. And everybody needs to go on the Discord community.
Exactly. It's really good. It really is just, you can talk about news, you can, do images, things like that. So yeah, please do that. I mean, the whole idea here, Leah and I started this because we talked back in December. We had both just kind of discovered this. Leah's a professional photographer, and this AI world feels very reminiscent of, kind of the early days of the web back in the mid 90s, which is what I talked about at the event the other night that you guys are from. And one of the things that was really interesting about that time was, you couldn't get a degree in web design, right? Nobody knew it, right? So everybody came from different disciplines. And I feel like the same thing's happening with this AI, where people are coming from, you're a copywriter, or they're an architect, or whatever it is, and we're all just trying to figure it out. So,
and I love that. I think the creative world's become very siloed, right? I think that photographers hang out with photographers and copywriters hang out with copywriters, and we do this one thing very, very well. But I think it's it can become a little myopic. And so one of my favorite things that's happened with the salon and with AI is that people from all different backgrounds are coming together, and there's this really cool confluence of creative ideas and energy happening. That's very exciting. That feels very, very early web to me, right?
Yep, exactly. The other thing about the salon is that we actually wrote down some values because we want to not suck.
That's right.
And one of the ways you not suck is figure out what you want to do and what you don't want to do. So Leah, you want to walk us through this? I'll pull them up on screen here.
Yeah, and I think that remembering our initial call at the time, I am working on trying to use AI to make photographs, right, and to use generate images versus using a camera. And Kyle was doing something very, very similar that I wanted to be doing with his portraits. And it was just casual, like, hey, let's just talk about what's happening. And this salon has come from that conversation. And so I think some of the values that we have figured out from that call that we have also expanded in this community are the following. Curiosity. We're eager to learn new things and ask questions. We started out as, hey, aren't we curious about this? Let's learn more. Let's all bring that to this salon. Generosity. We're willing to share what we know, and we want you to share what you know. There's so much to learn with AI, and it's impacting so many different industries and ideas and creative processes. Let's all come together and share what we know and work together. Generosity. Exploration. We're trying new things. We're taking risks. We're here to explore and try out things. Collaboration. There's so many intersections of capacities and capabilities happening right now. here at this salon, and we want people to meet each other and start working together and building great things. Inclusion, we actively seek out and value diverse perspectives, experiences, recognizing that our differences make us stronger. I just mentioned that as part of the collaboration. And empathy, we're mindful of the impact our work has on others, and we strive to create work that is respectful, inclusive, and meaningful. There's a lot of potential directions AI could go, and I think it's most successful when we come at it from a place of empathy. Thank you. Kyle, your mic is off. Yeah.
One more now. What's that now, talking? Is it on? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, there you are. Hello.
Let me see. Video. Does that give us?
Oh, that was Kyle, you're gone. We see only Kyle's.
Am I back now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. All right. Okay. What was I going to say? Yeah, that idea of just, curiosity, I feel like, depending on where you are on the journey with all this AI stuff, like the most important thing to do right now is be curious, whether you're coming at it from a technology perspective or an art perspective or whatever. Things are changing so fast that I feel like we're all going to need to be curious and like exploratory for the next year or two just to keep up. One thing that we like to do here is to introduce ourselves, just keep the community. So especially if you're new here, I see a lot of new faces here in Denver. We'll start online. Ken is our timekeeper. You have 60 seconds. And what I would love you to do, so if you raise your hand, and the bottom icons on the screen for those of you that are remote, there's the little hand icon. That's the raise your hand icon. So if you would, please raise your hand, and then Ken will call on you. And then after we do the online people, we'll go around the room here in Denver and introduce ourselves just to see some of the diversity of who's in the room and what your backgrounds are. So tell us who you are, what you do, and kind of your relationship with AI, whether you're new to it or you invented the crap. We're good with it all.
All right, looks like we're starting with Janice.
Hi, I'm Janice Kaye, and hi. And last week, I just have to share, last week I had a salon in New York, and the topic was ChatGPT, devil or savior. And so this was a group of people who in the 90s came together, and we had salons back then, and it was a great group, and we missed Kyle and we missed Leah, but it was a great group. And a lot of very thoughtful, empathetic, and curious people were in the room. So it was great. And we're back at it. We're back at it. So
Nice.
I can't wait to come to one. Sounds so cool.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Janice. Stephen Ludwig, you're up.
Hey, I'm Steve Ludwig. I'm in Denver. Might make it to the happy hour still. I'm just a curious person. I'm a writer. I hack at art. I'm involved in higher education. So I'm really curious what's going on, and I'm just here to learn. So thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Great to have you, Stephen. Ron Morris, you're up.
And you're muted.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Ron Morris, I run a digital agency, and I don't think there's anything I do right now without consulting my partner, ChatGPT.
Your co-founder.
I don't. If you turn it off, I actually don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was funny. I got I'm putting together a workshop, and the client did a survey, and like 25 people responded. I got this spreadsheet back, and it was just all this crap. And my initial instinct was like, oh God, I got to deal with this. I was like, no, I don't. I just copied and pasted it into ChatGPT and had it do the work.
That's
awesome.
exactly right. Yeah.
That's right.
All right, thank you. Alan Chudnow, you're up.
Thank you. I'm using collaborating with ChatGPT to write a little novella. That is extremely unusual for me because I'm an engineer, and here I am writing a gothic romance. So that's the creativity that you can bring in play and what's at stake. I'm a little worried that people are going to be so good at ChatGPT that the treadmill's just going to spin faster, and all this productivity is going to be, we're all going to be superstars for now, but in a month, we're all just going to be average again as everyone picks up, and the treadmill's just going to increase in space. So our job is to figure out how to make it so that we're escaping the wheel, not running on it faster. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Eric Sanner, you're up.
Hello, everyone. So previously I've introduced myself as I used to be an artist. I don't really know what I want to do. I don't really know what I'm doing. I've been working with a life coach for several months, and we came up with this idea of collaborative creative research. And over the past 2 weeks, I discovered that UX design is like a great place to practice that. So if you know anybody looking for a UX designer, I'm enrolled in 2 certificate courses. I'm going to master it. And also in my art career, I did all these interactive installations. And basically, I've done every part of the job over my career. So I just want to throw that out there. But as far as I've totally stepped away from AI because I can't study everything at once. But I love this salon of being here. So
Awesome.
Exciting. What an exciting time to be here, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, good to have you back, Eric. All right, Jeff Gray, you're up.
Hello, I've been in the apparel business for over 25 years, actually. And I'm working on ways to print AI-generated art and bring it to physical products. And I'm getting ready to come out with some information shortly. So hope to share some things in the next few weeks with you guys.
That's so cool. I love that we have a Garmento amongst us.
I'm having a blast, by the way. This is a great group.
It's a great way to make your wares unique when you go out in the world, I gotta say.
Yes.
Good to have you back, Jeff. All right, Terry, you're up.
Hi, I'm Terry Spataro, and I think I like to be called a AI creative director right now. So I do both visual and written creativity, and I just want to plug something. Saturday night, I'm going to have my first opening of my AI work, and it's going to be held at the Link that's very close by, and the experience is going to be immersive. So I went through the trials and tribulations of taking AI video from normal format and upscaling it to 8K, which was quite the ordeal. Anyways, I'm so glad you guys are here. I feel like an old timer. I've been doing this for a couple of years and so glad I have friends now.
So
Welcome
the
back,
link
Terry.
that just dropped, will you drop a link so we can see the show, the opening?
Yeah, I'm not sure how they're gonna. It's actually in real life too.
Oh. Okay. And where's the opening? Where in real life?
It's in Ponte Vedra, and it's this weekend, this Saturday. Only a couple hours. My work will be shown in this massive 360 immersive experience.
Congratulations.
And hopefully I'll be, be able to take photos and stuff like that that I can share.
Really exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. All right, Kay Penner Howell, you're up.
Hello, I'm living on the extremes here. I'm taking a break from putting plants in the ground to talk about AI. So, but most of the time I'm a writer, creative director, and have been playing around with things, mostly from the ChatGPT side of things, but a little bit with Midjourney and DALL-E, and just kind of figuring out where it fits in. I'm reminded of, I'm old enough to remember actually when Mosaic came out. I was playing around pretty early with what became the World Wide Web, and that's and was doing paste up before Quark disrupted that. So I'm ready for like what's going to happen now. A lot of similarities kind of flooding in, but just hanging on for the ride right now, trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Welcome. Great to have you here.
I did. I was doing desktop publishing as my day job in New York, and I used Spark Express, and I was freelancing at an ad agency. And I remember walking down this hallway, and there was a guy sitting at a drafting table, and he was, pulling out lines of tape, and he was putting rules down on paper by hand. And I remember just feeling really guilty. I'm like, oh, I just draw a box. So yeah.
When I met my husband, we worked at the same place, and he did paste up work. He's a fine artist, but he was for his day job doing paste up, and he'd show up with words all over stuck all over body and be like, oh, what do you say today?
That's awesome.
All right, thanks for that. Doug, you're up.
Yeah, I'm Doug Hohulin. I'm with KU School of Nursing, doing on immersive technology, and I've been working as a consultant on generative AI and doing some speaking as well. Had a good meeting with one hospital about using generative AI, using videos, short videos to help with patient education and individual treatment plans. Encouraging them, having fun videos, especially for kids. I just put in the link. I just became the VR AR Association. Has a whole bunch of committees. One of them is now the committee for generative AI, and so I'm going to be the one of the chairs. Actually, if anyone's interested in being a chair, we're looking for more people. But they have about 20 different committees on the VR AR Association and all kinds of areas. And you don't have to be a member to attend any of these committees, but if you're active, then they want you to be a member. But yeah, join and see what's going on. But we're trying to promote VR AR, generative AI within VR AR. And there's some other events coming up. There's a enterprise and training event, and we're going to be talking about generative AI in that. And also in healthcare, we're going to be talking about that as well as storytelling. So there's like 4 forums coming up in the next 2 months.
Excellent, Doug. Congratulations. I speak with them often, and we should follow up about AWE as well. That's a wonderful.
Yeah, please reach out to me.
Fantastic.
And Doug, would you, when those events are happening, would you drop that into Discord or to LinkedIn so the community knows about them?
Sure, absolutely.
That'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Doug.
Really
Ted Henning, you're.
Just if you're new, if you just logged in online, just raise your hand. It's one of the little hand icons on the bottom if you want to introduce yourself. If not, that's cool too, but we want to meet you.
Okay, Ted Henning, you're up.
Yeah, how you doing, everybody? I'm Ted Henning. I'm outside of Boston. I attended the first bunch of these, and then I missed like the last 3 or 4, unfortunately, because of conflict. I really missed just listening to everybody and hearing everything is doing. I'm in the learning space, so a lot of corporate training, corporate learning strategy, things like that. And I've spent a lot of time sort of exploring how to use all these different tools. I've used. There hasn't been a huge opportunity so far in my current work, my current project, but I have used it for curriculum design, assessment design, and more of the whole idea about collaborating as a sort of a partner and inspiration. But I see so much more where it can go when I get in the right spot. So I just really enjoyed these and the guests you guys bring on and everything. It's I follow a lot of you too on various socials. So that's me.
Great
to have you back, Ted. All right, Becky Cooperman, you're up.
Hi, everybody. I'm Becky. I work in features and strategic foresight. And so I've been using Chat GPT mostly to try and develop a way to make features and scenarios in particular more immersive so that people can experience them without having to read a lot. And I've been using Midjourney and DALL-E in particular to develop feature artifacts. So it's been really interesting and fun.
Nice.
Great to have you back. Charles Brewer, you're up.
Hi, everyone. Charlie Brewer in San Francisco. I am a user experience designer and product manager, currently consulting with a number of clients, and I'm trying to keep up with AI. Very keen to see how AI is going to change the workflow for people who make software, product managers, user experience designers, and even coders. Fascinating. And so that's me. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Welcome.
Thank you. Drew Shockley, you're up.
Hi everyone, I'm Drew Shockley. I'm in Chicago. I'm a web designer and developer. Used to live in Denver, and that's where I met Kyle and some wonderful people there. Yeah, I've been using ChatGPT a lot, along with Midjourney for images, ChatGPT for about everything to help me collaborate and all that. So excited to be here.
Cool. You look like a DJ.
Working on that.
Cool. All right. I guess that's good. If anyone online wants to introduce themselves, just raise your hand. But why don't we go here in Denver? You want to start?
Yeah, I can start. My name is Elijah Johnson. I'm a head of engineering at a company called eToro for US engineering. Trying to look at how I can integrate more AI tools in my software engineers' kind of daily lives, if that's testing, whatever. And then got a couple side projects, and then also going to Georgia Tech right now, getting a specialization in computer science for ML. So trying to surround my life in AI and ML right now.
Wow.
So, but I enjoy it.
You actually know about this stuff. We're just trying to figure this crap out. So you're out there doing weights and models. Yeah. That's awesome.
My name is Kasim. I'm a software architect. Been doing software development for more than 15 years. I had the pleasure to work on a very deep AI learning project in the last 3 years.
Oh, wow.
More specifically with the natural language processing, which is a subfield of AI that we have to develop a custom automatic system recognitions for the testing layer. And now, since the job is ended, we got laid off. And, I'm very interested in the AI-generated content, mostly related to the text.
Cool. Very nice.
Welcome.
John.
Oh, hi, I'm John. I'm here. Bye.
All right, John. So I'm gonna introduce John. So John runs the building that I work in here. He's also a super cool dude, but he's also created. So I don't think you were super into this stuff when we started this.
No, I was trying to get back into music production, and you brought up AI.
Yeah, so I got him hooked on AI, and now, like the good crackhead that he is, he started an AI business called Maintenance Mentor. So he's created a series of virtual maintenance people that other maintenance people are going to, like there's an AV special. Like right now, he's trying to figure out the AI issues going on in the room here, and he's pulled up his own AI, and he's got the virtual, AV specialist. And so I just think it's so bitchin' cool. So I knew you wouldn't do that for yourself.
Yes, well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And also that's what saved, what was Monday morning?
Oh, the creative mornings.
Yeah. If it wasn't for Jane, wouldn't have
What did I do?
Yeah.
No, the virtual Jane.
Oh, Jane.
The other Jane.
Yeah.
Jane. Speaking of Jane, my name is Jane. I'm a organizer for the group, also content writer, and slowly becoming a Chat GPT operator because it basically does my job now. And that's it. I've been coming to these since January, kind of addicted, and totally hooked. Join the commune. Welcome to the commune.
Yeah. Welcome to the bus.
You can skip me. No. Yes. I'm good.
You done? You're not good. So Allie's here too. Hi, Allie.
Yeah, hi, Allie.
So I'm Eric Janicki. Our company builds large-scale art experiences. So we combine physical art, sort of traditional art forms with more cutting-edge tech. And so I'm here. I'm just out of curiosity. It's obviously a huge wave coming, and I was hoping this would be sort of a casual way for me to passively learn, because we're super busy building our first permanent experience. I don't have a lot of time. But I need to stay on top of, I feel like I need to stay on top of what's happening in tech.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
My name is Lisa. I'm in marketing. I work for Eric, and I decided to tag along, but I've been playing around with ChatGPT mostly, seeing what it does right, see what it does wrong, surprised at the answers that it gives me sometimes, and just kind of figuring it out.
Awesome.
Welcome, welcome.
Brad Perkins. I'm digital product strategist and designer. Formerly director of UX and digital strategy for a large agency, but it was getting in the way of learning about AI, so I actually quit that to start up an AI and go head first into it.
I think it's quite wise. That's really cool.
My name is Pat Basinger. I am a vocational counselor. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome here. Where are you on the AI journey?
Figuring it out. I'm also a business owner, so ChatGPT has been super helpful with some of the startup tasks, just in general, people who are starting a business. Which, there's a lot of it, so it's been super helpful.
Check out, there's a site called GPT Boss, started by a guy named Mackenzie Bose, which is similar to what he's doing for maintenance mentors, but you can hire virtual employees, and it's sort of pre-prompted GPT things. You don't necessarily need it if you're geeking out on GPT, but it's worth checking out. Check it out.
Yeah, he's attached it to other things. It's not just GPT alone.
Yeah.
You know, and I haven't checked on him in a while, but it was seeming like he could send emails to you, text messages, stuff like that. So yeah, he's got a really good program. Yeah, sounds great. Thank you.
My name's Amber. I have a degree in visual arts and emerging media management. I recently got my full stack certification. Currently, I do a lot of the front development for a knowledge-based company, and they've also recently developed their own LLM. So I'm just trying to figure out the best ways to implement this into my workflow and just be ahead of everything. I have an unquenchable curiosity.
So perfect for the group. It's all a fad. It's just this is gonna blow over.
Hi everyone, my name is Devin. I'm a software engineer. I'm just mostly curious about AI, where it's going. My work's trying to push more to using AI technology.
That's interesting.
So I'll learn some more. Cool.
Hi, digital people, hi, regular people. CJ, I'm a graphic designer, digital artist, scoundrel, and photographer. And career-wise, I do a lot of visual designing for those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And then somehow I managed to sell my own AI art to other people.
Oh, wow. Cool. In what form? You sell it digitally or?
I will actually digital converted to print.
Nice.
So larger format from 810 all the way to 4680s.
Wow. Beautiful. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you. That's awesome. So the big crowd here in Denver. After this meeting, we're going to go hang out at Zeppelin Station. So if you want to hang out, do all that, we're going to do that. For those of you online, knock one back virtually.
Maybe we need to like just bring a laptop and set it up on the table you guys are all sitting at.
Yeah, that's not a bad. You can hang out. That's good. So we'll do. I'm excited to bring Evo on because I think there's just so much to cover there. But I want to do a couple of news items. There were kind of three news items that are semi-related that I think are worth just sort of putting out there. And then if you have any thoughts for the online folks, just raise your hand and Ken will call on you. But the three things that were kind of related was Jeffrey Hinton, who they call the godfather of AI, quit Google so that he could be free to talk about the risks of AI. There was also a leak from a Google employee. A Google document was leaked that the title of it was "We Have No Moat," where he basically talked about the fact that the open source large language models are getting so good so fast that, like one quote in it says, the open source community is, what they're doing with $100 in one of the small models is basically as good as what we spent $10 million, on one of these massive models. And then also there were 4 CEOs that were invited to the White House, and it was a really interesting bunch. It was the CEO of Microsoft, the CEO of Google, the CEO of OpenAI, and then the CEO of Anthropic, which Anthropic on the surface feels kind of weird because, like, you know, those 3 are like the biggies. But Anthropic is the company that does constitutional learning models. So it's kind of a different safety protocol than what OpenAI is doing. So I thought it was kind of interesting. So those things are not all directly related, but I thought they were kind of they're semi-related, and it just, you know, it just feels like there are just major movements going on in the industry right now. I'm just curious if anyone had any thoughts or anything like that. Thoughts, curiosities. Oscar's
Looks like, yeah, Oscar, you got a comment or a question, contribution?
Yeah, I mean, we still haven't vetted for sure the authenticity of the "we have no moat," but everything aligns correctly with what does make sense in the space. And even if it's not, like, the initial analysis said that, like, this is an interesting way of looking at things. And it does bear out that the open source model, like the article says, we're looking at potentially a Stable Diffusion inflection point where large language models will be quantized down. I mean, they already are running on Raspberry Pis, they're running on iPhones. So the open models do seem to be the way forward, and also in terms of, like, breaking up the monopoly, which Microsoft and OpenAI are quite literally forming in front of our eyes. We do need robust open alternatives, and that mirrors what we saw with the development of the internet in the first place, where you know, a big section of what Microsoft stronghold was taken over by Linux.
So I personally, I didn't get to read the article about we have no moats. I'm kind of curious about what they were saying, why they believe they don't have a moat, because I thought they had Bard.
They have no advantage right now. Like, the advantage that they built up with, like, tens and hundreds of billions of whatevers of hours and dollars in tech is now being essentially matched on some level by these very small open models that are being trained up with stuff like LoRa. Instead, we're seeing it turn into, like, an arms race, but, like, literally $100 and a couple of video cards, as opposed to, you know, Amazon's entire cloud to train something up.
Yeah, the moat reference is a reference to competition, Ken, that they basically can't compete, that just because they're spending millions of dollars building these big foundational models, it isn't a competitive advantage for them, that these open source things are coming at them way faster than they can innovate. And so I feel like part of the implication for me is that this is something I've felt for a while, and this feels like it confirms it, that these large language models are just going to end up being like the internet. They're just going to be part of the fabric of what we do. They're going to get rolled into Office 365 and Google things. They're going to be on phone chips. They're just going to be everywhere. And so, you know, assuming that leak was valid, which it might not be, it could be a PR thing. But yeah, it just seems like they're not going to be able to control as much of the large language model world as maybe they thought they would. I think ultimately it's good for us.
They can't compete on quality either, which is an interesting realization that was relatively new within the last few months.
Mm-hmm.
So I've tested 15 different large language models for one particular project, and we can talk a little bit about what that yielded. But there are some fascinating models, even just playing on Hugging Face, where you can go and go pretty deep down a rabbit hole that will take you to very unusual places.
Yep. Yeah, it's actually interesting. It was, you know, that thing was leaked on the 5th, and then on May 7th, a large language model, it's called MTP-7B, I think. But it's got a 65,000 token context window, which basically means you can paste 48,000 words into the prompt window and it'll read them all. So one of the examples was someone pasted in the entire text of The Great Gatsby and said, write an epilogue. and then wrote an epilogue for The Great Gatsby. And that's an open source model built on a 7 billion parameter, like a really small model. So crazy stuff coming.
All right, I think Roger, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I don't know that I'd be crying too many tears for the big players quite yet, because it's still exciting. Today, the smaller models are not comparable to the biggest models. There's a significant gap in what they can do, and all this is basically based on a presumption that you can extrapolate that the large language, that the smaller open source models are going to close that gap, but that gap hasn't been closed yet, and I think the concern is more that either the current expenditure of resources by the big players isn't going to move them ahead of the smaller ones fast enough. And so, they're going to be able to catch up, not tomorrow, but soon enough that, from a strategic point of view for these big players, they don't have, they can't count on a difference, far into the future.
Good point. All right, Alan, you have a question or comment?
You're muted, Alan.
Kyle, can you repeat the name of the Great Gatsby model?
MTP7B by Meta something. Like, if you go to the Everyday AI newsletter, the latest issue, we talk about it. It's the first or second article or something like that. Hold, please.
Thank you. What I wanted to ask in addition to that was the White House met with these CEOs, and did they end up with any actions, or did they just bullshit around for a couple hours and then say, well, that was useful? And the sort of second part about that is, even if they did take any actions, given that there's no moat, does it matter? Is AI development now been open source to the point, and technology is moving so fast that it's basically not really controllable by a small number of people?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a good point. I think the fact that there's open source models that don't have safety restrictions on them makes it a bit of a moot point, because the stuff is out there. But I also think that the White House needs to get a clue. Like, they need to get their heads around it. Part of my suspicion is Hinton setting himself up to be AI czar. Because I think the White House, having those CEOs, at least says, okay, we're willing to figure this thing out. Whether or not they don't understand what Wi-Fi is. So I don't know that we're going to get there, but it would be nice if we tried. So maybe if you get someone like Hinton, who's smart enough, he could actually help guide things. But yeah, I think the horse is out of the barn. The model that I was talking about is called Mosaic ML, and it's MP as in Paul T 7B. And then the one with the 65,000K window is a model called Story Writer within that MTP7B model. Okay. Alan, your hand is still raised. You're good, Alan, right?
I am complete. Thank you.
Cool. I'd like to turn this conversation over to Evo. I'm really excited to introduce Evo. She's a creative producer. She's a prompt engineer. She's a creative badass. She is going to walk us through what she does, what she believes, and I don't know, probably lots of other surprises. And we may even end up with a surprise guest who's joining Evo in her physical space. So with that, Evo, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited to have you here, and I can't wait to hear what you tell us.
Aw, thank you. I hope you can hear me. Please let me know if this is coming through well. It's really great to be with all of you here. I am joining you from my physical live work design lab, which is called Realitycraft. I am physically in the same place that is featured on the album Willie and the Poor Boys. If you are a Creedence fan from 1969, you have seen my house before on the front of that cover of that album. So I am literally down on the corner out in the street, and y'all are welcome to come play here anytime. We do salons here as well as art shows. And so I am mixing old and new art in my experimentation. I've been a creator, producer, technologist for decades. Let's call it 30 to 40 years, professionally for 25. A couple of months ago, I wrote a book called Promptcraft, which you're seeing here. It's on Amazon for free on Kindle Unlimited, or there's a paperback version, which looks like this, which you can also pick up. In that book, I go in a broad swath, very easy to read version. I go through all of these different types of new generative media, how they work in a very basic way. This book is probably a little bit too basic for most of you. The new book that I'm working on next is probably more your speed, but if you're looking for something to help people get started, that book is designed to be more of a sort of McLuhan's guide to the AI world, right? Let's look at how media is malleable and how it has become a form of jazz, a form of impressionism and expression that is new, that has a unique surrealism to it, that has a unique flavor to it. So I've been creating for a very long time, and I'm going to keep the volume off on these videos, but I am currently working on a number of projects, some of which I can't talk about in detail, but some of which I can. So what you're seeing here are clips ahead of a music video project that I'm working on currently. I am releasing an album in 2 weeks with an amazing musician, Will Henshaw. Will is based in LA, and he previously wrote Grammy Award-winning songs with his band London Beat back in the late 80s, early 90s, and he's worked with tons of artists over the years. So he leads music teams and communities, and we've been working on an album that is both human and AI, that we're basically inviting AI into the band with us. And so what that looks like is a wide mix of tools, right? So we are using, as I mentioned, 15 different LLMs that we've tested along the way in the writing and lyrics development process. What you're seeing here are some of the pieces that are going into both the music video and that will be on the GitHub, that will be available in Creative Commons format down the road for other people to mix and remix with. So basically creating this sort of new way of collaborating with our colleagues. I formed the gallery and the salon that we're doing here called Realitycraft in late September. That boomed very quickly. We are looking at a community right now of about 250 folks. And then we started working with other teams very quickly, because what I found was I was teaching both Midjourney and Stable Diffusion back in the fall and in part of the winter. And those workshops were getting more demand than I could reasonably keep up with. So I began putting on tutorials on YouTube. That would have been probably December, January. And a few of my friends sort of found their way to me through that work. Those collaborations led to a number of interesting things. So what you're going to see here is a generated video using a tool called AugX Labs. Augie, or Meet Augie, basically makes generative video from a prompt and uses Getty footage or Giphy so that you can make a very quick video. Now, this video has a voiceover. It has all of the elements of a full video suite in the cloud. And so I'm able to generate a script, generate all of the content pieces that go with that, and basically make a video that talks about not just my art, but in this case, a bunch of art that we sent to the space station a couple of weeks ago. So this became a very quick art collaboration that we were able to do, in part because of the work of generative media becoming so quick, right? So the collaboration formed in February. We sent the art up in a few weeks ago. So that's the kinds of faster workflows we're talking about here. As an artist who's constantly filling with inspiration, I am excited to have a wide variety of collaborators working with me on different teams. And because we can do things so quickly now, we're using Discord, for example, to iterate quickly. We're using, not just Midjourney, but the more advanced tools within Stable Diffusion. When I'm developing concept art, I do quite a bit of concept art right now for a mix of clients. And when I'm doing that work, it's often starting either in Midjourney or in Stable Diffusion, but then I might take that work out into a number of different design programs in order to realize it or to sort of get it ready to share. There are times at which I find it easier to just, stick something out and put it on TikTok really fast. So this kind of thing, this is a little interior design experiment I did that I personally love, these rich, maximalist, natural environments. And I found that by sharing my stuff, I was to meet other artists and designers who were into the same motifs and find new collaborators to work on new things. So one of these ideas led to something that is now on a set, right? So these are the kinds of sort of rapid fire iterative cycles that weren't necessarily happening or might have been slower to form during the pandemic and prior, right? So I've been in media for 25 years, and previously, if I were going to do a series of art pieces like the ones here for a client, let's say a poster for an awareness campaign, I might take 2 or 3 months to do that effort. What I'm doing now is a cycle that's more like 2 or 3 days, maybe a week with most clients. When I'm working as a prompt engineer, whether that's with a fine artist or with someone in a storytelling context, I will frequently do a series of 3 iterative cycles where we go from a concept to vision to realized ideas, and then we'll start to animate those and see what they can come up with. So I'm going to think through with you a little bit of what that workflow looks like and how it's different. I'm working right now as a prompt engineer for a media publishing company that is global and well-known, and I can't speak exactly to what we're working on. But you're gonna hear about it at Google I/O very shortly. So the kinds of tools that we're talking about here, we went from maybe 10 great art tools in 2021 to 100 great art tools in 2022, now 1,000 plus that we can get out there with and play with, whether that's these kinds of video tools. This is a clip from Kyber. Basically, I'm taking in this clip a Midjourney image and then using Kyber to create prompted short videos that I then cut into, for example, music video clips. So that's how these kinds of things I'm doing are relatively fast in terms of workflows. And so I can go from a psychedelic project to a historical project to something that is in a university setting to something that is for a bunch of Supreme Court justices in Israel. And I can realistically kind of bounce from one idea to the next extremely quickly because I'm never spending more than a few hours developing a collection. So this is an art collection I developed with a colleague of mine, Indigenous friend here in America, who wanted to do some things that were more op art. I tend to think about representation first when I'm doing work, and sometimes it's not right for me to do the work or right to do it solo. So I want to encourage you to keep forming collabs that are rich and that are informing your own creative process, whatever that looks like. You know, go out and work with someone who maybe comes from a wildly different background as you. My new album, which is called Oracles, like the ear oracles, that project formed very quickly because there was enough collaborative banter there that we were able to very quickly find a language, decide how to work together. And then literally 70 pages of lyrics came within a couple of weeks of experimentation. Now, we're doing a whole human composed album. So that requires mastering and publishing and all of the sorts of things that some of you are familiar with. And it takes time. It's not something that we can do overnight. And so that sort of 3-month production process, which would have been a year, if I were doing a traditional album, right? If I were, you know, trying to be Freddie Mercury here or trying to be a different type of artist, these timelines are shrinking, but the human work is not replaced in the process. The human work is displaced slightly in the sense that the human is now here for curation, for punching it up with humor, for making sure that the prompts make sense, for teaching an old cat new tricks like riding a bike. This is sorts of experiments that I personally love to do. And I'm going to encourage all of you as you're thinking about new tools to try something impossible first or second. But when you're getting started with a new tool, especially some of these generative video tools, think of an impossible prompt and see where it goes contextually, because you'll get a great sense of how it's, you know, not thinking, but thinking, right? How it's reasoning by doing an experiment like getting a cat to ride a bike. So I do a lot of this work across the board. You know, I do workshops and webinars, and I try and figure out, like, from a world building perspective, right? So I have all of these sort of imaginative worlds that I want to bring to life. How do I create a process for that other people can step into? So during the pandemic, I started creating more like a game of that process. And that is what Realitycraft is. It is designed to be a place where people can step into a full generative and creative process, whether that's concept design or trying to do something like a new album here. So I wanted to give you a sense of what that sort of internal collaborative process looks like, but I also want to take some time and answer your questions in terms of, like, what does the work of a prompt engineer look like? How does this all come together? And then, you know, how does it end up forming a produced product at the end, right? So over the last year, I've done 3 books, about 100 videos, about 50,000 images. Some of those have sold as art pieces as well. So I did a series of owls. This is from the second series, or the third actually series of owls that I did. But certain types of art I have found are very popular. I also do certain types of commission works, especially portraiture and world building. So world design work. This is something we're working on currently, is the XR Guild, where I'm a board member. I've worked in the AR, VR, XR industries for the better part of the last 15 years and come from a open metaverse mindset. And so we've been working to build a library and a guild building in WebXR in a 3D space that is all a mix of generative with the designed elements that provide a library, a guild, a gathering space for our industry. So those of you who were talking about the VR, ARA, and XR industry stuff earlier, I'd like to talk to you more about how that will play out, because a lot of the concept work I'm doing right now are resources or archives or libraries, museums, public spaces, not just the sort of private metaverse spaces we've talked about for the last few years. Much of where I'm focused in terms of design and engagement is specifically in things that are designed for open source or for the public sphere to engage in, right? So when we're designing the new album art, everything's designed to be open source for that reason. So I'm going to take some time for reflection and inquiry with you, and would love to take your questions about some of what you're seeing here. I wanted to mention to the person who mentioned generative art with medical, we are finding that these kinds of tools, for example, Kyber here allows for a form of anonymity that is extremely useful for educations and nonprofit organizations. And so making sure that there are inroads for libraries, nonprofits, and hospitals to have access to generative tools soon as possible. I've been working with teams such as Blue Willow to make sure that we can get these kinds of tools into the hands of, for example, students who are not able to necessarily access these tools anywhere else. So I'm going to jump in and look at our chat here and make sure I've captured your questions. And thanks for noticing that I love my golden white cat, who is a lovely deaf guy, and I do a fair amount of art inspired by him. All right, so book is Promptcraft, and I'll try and stick a bit.ly link in here for you as well.
And if anyone just has questions, go ahead and click the raise hand button and we can call on you here. I guess I have a question to start off. You kind of spoke briefly, and maybe I missed it because the presentation was going a little fast, but about the 3 iterative cycle workflow process. I'm just kind of wondering what that, if you could maybe speak a little bit more about what those 3 steps are. I'm kind of curious personally.
Sure. So when I'm doing an image generation process, and I'm going to go ahead and stop presenting, I'll just have my video here. When I'm working on an image generation, I will start by creating the prompt, usually with the client, to encapsulate the brief. From there, I might create a collection of 200 images and then ask them to pick their top 10. And I'm looking for very specific types of things, not just art style, but subject matter, things that they definitely don't want and do want. And then from there, I might be readdressing the prompt, iterating again. In Midjourney, I would use the blend tool frequently. So I might take 3 or 4 images, 5 images, and blend them together, and then create another round of 100, 200, sometimes 700 images in order to build a bank for a training set, right? So if I'm creating in Stable Diffusion a whole training set for, let's say, a world or a character in a story, I'm going to end up creating 1,000 images from beginning to end.
Awesome. Thank you. Ted Henning, you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I think my question really is around the journey of becoming a prompt engineer, because we heard this term, back in January, and I think it's just a two-sided question. One is about when did you're obviously extraordinarily qualified to be that, but like, when did you sort of realize that, you actually could do that? But even more so, when did you realize, or how did you get your first couple of clients as a contract prompt engineer? Where companies are actually seeking that skill set, because you hear about there's the occasional job description, but this you're obviously making a business around this. It's fascinating.
Thank you. So I originally wrote a fictional script, which is registered with the WGA, about our relationships as humans with AI back in 2005. And I tried to sell it in Hollywood. No one would talk to me. They didn't understand what I was talking about. And they're like, what do you mean you want to tell positive stories for families and kids about our relationships with AI? They thought I was phony. So I went and did my graduate work at Singularity University in 2012 with lovely people who've written books on superintelligence, and some of them masters in the field. So I was lucky. I had weirdos like Ray Kurzweil as my professors, right? So I could really bounce off and ask them tough ethical questions. I could see where we were going to hit in terms of both saturation and overload. I would say as where we are right now, for many people, they can't keep up and they're feeling overwhelmed by it, right? And so I enjoy the humanizing, the creation of symbiosis in this sense of an ecosystem that we're all sharing, and also normalizing creatives using their tools effectively, right? Let's sharpen our knives together so that we can sculpt our best work. And so I guess I've been a techno optimist all my life, as I was a tiny little coder girl, but at the same time, I figured out that I had a unique capacity for this when I was at Singularity in grad school. So I was focused on AI and collective intelligence as it relates to education. And we had tried to build a product in this space almost 10 and a half years ago now.
All right, thanks for that. CJ, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, question. First of all, Evo, thank you for this. Your work is amazing. Just watching the owls up there were just incredible. I wanted to ask you about your initial prompt. When you first start that initial prompt process, when it comes to some of the finer art that you do you find yourself being more analytical in your prompting at the beginning, or more storytelling? You can maybe speak on a little bit of both, if you happen to do a little bit of both. Going into that.
I do a lot of both, and I come from both arenas. So There are times where it's a deeply visionary experience, like I'm translating a dream into some sort of vision that I can see. And so I will be very intuitive and bring the words that inspire me. And in that case, I might be looking for juxtaposition or sort of a uniqueness of color, form, style that I haven't seen before, right? So I might be trying to push the envelope in a specific direction. When I'm working with a client, I often have to be extremely analytical, put on my engineer hat, do things in tables and like be like, I'm working in Notion and I've got everything organized, and it's, you know, very engineering oriented. By that level, I mean, every single word in a 400 word prompt has been analyzed to see what is the effect of that word.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Leah, you're up.
Yeah, I have so many questions. I think the bigger strategic question I'm interested in is, I think we're so used to a creative process where you have a solo practitioner defining the vision, defining the way something looks, defining a voice. And one of the things I feel like is happening a little bit with a lot of the generating that's happening right now is that I don't necessarily hear the artist's voice coming through in a lot of the work. And I'm curious about your experience at your own voice, and when you are generating, working in your own voice, when you're working and generating collaboratively, and then when you're working and generating with clients. And then I have a follow-up question, which is your experience with Stable Diffusion and Midjourney, and when you use which tools and how they come together.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and break this down. I will often start in Midjourney because I feel very facile with it. I've generated over 50,000 images. I feel very comfortable in that tool. I will often then go and upscale at clip drop, and I might use Stable Diffusion on top of that, especially if I'm trying to do 50 iterations of something very similar, but I want to tweak it in very specific ways. So in a client workflow, I will often start in Midjourney to ideate. I will take my favorites over to a shared, like a Google Drive folder or something, and then I'll work in Stable Diffusion from there. Now that's very different than my own art style, and I typically will develop collections by like inspiration mode, and I might do a couple hundred of them right in a row, and then start to refine a body of work, almost like a sculpture but in a series. And so I've done, I think, 25 collections that are more my own art style, some of which I have printed and sold, most of which I haven't tried to. I'm still a little tender about how to do that because I love printing it for myself. And when someone asks me, I'm happy to sell things, but I have been a little battered by some of the hate from other artists that I've engaged with, including friends of mine who I've repped in my gallery. So it's been a challenging mode. And this is part of why I formed Realitycraft as a private group on Facebook as well, because I saw that a number of artists needed places like this, needed a salon to go and experiment and test and bounce off of each other, find out what's going on, and maybe learn something along the way without feeling like they're going to be under attack for wanting to learn.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that acknowledgement. It's been fascinating. The conversations I've had with photographers around generating imagery using Stable Diffusion, even training on my own work, and just the fear and it's not really photography. You're not really a photographer. I've been a photographer for 25 years. So
right. Yeah. So negating your existing art voice because you choose to work at a new media is pretty deeply disrespectful to the creative.
And it doesn't make any sense. So thank you for acknowledging that. I really appreciate it.
I'm guessing early photographers had the exact same experience from painters. So
absolutely. Yeah. Anytime there's been a big technological shift.
From analog to digital.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's very cool is that people in the art scene are noticing that generative art has its own aesthetic, has its own ways of being more jazz-like and collaborative than other art forms have been. And so not only are the attribution and metadata, all of those sort of content and consent rules going to be rewritten, but all of the collaboration and value rules are also going to be rewritten along the way.
Yeah, it's exciting. Thank you.
Can I just quickly follow up on Leah's question and what you said about, the attacks? Have you seen it improving in recent months as AI has gotten more popular and more visible? Are you seeing those attacks diminish, or is it still active and alive?
I will say it moves, right? So it went from the visual artists, and currently, obviously, Writers Guild is going through the ringer. And I have friends on all sides of these weird conversations because I want writers to feel empowered to use their tools effectively, and I want writers to be paid for their work, right? Those two should not be exclusive, but they are currently. They're somewhat being pitted at odds to each other. One thing I definitely try to note every time I get out there now is that when we're using these tools, they may speed up our personal process. They don't replace work. They displace work, right? So my job is now to be the curator, to be the critical thinker, to be the language engineer, right? The prompt analyst who's going through with a fine-tooth comb on every single word. So instead of writing a ton of copy, I am now fine-tooth combing a mechanism to write copy infinitely, right? It's a slightly different brain and mindset. It just, I think the narrative that is out there in public is feeding a lot of this fear of help, I'm being replaced. And it's partially because we've only had bad dystopian AI movies for 50 plus years. We really have very few good examples out there of what a positive future might look like.
What do your production teams look like for that level of prompt crafting? Are you writing that all yourself, or do you have a production team, assistants and whatnot helping you do that?
So on one contract, it's a team of 10. Within my band, there are 3 of us. So myself and the songwriter, along with our engineer and the mastering suite who's getting the album finished. But we also have, as we say, 15 bandmates, right? 58. We have our AI bandmates, including our AI ciphers, who are spun from real vocalists. So I am not a singer anymore, but I'm a cipher now, right? That's an unusual thing. I made a voice print in 11 Labs. And so for those of you who haven't played with the voice side of generative media, 11 Labs and other tools will let you make a voice print of yourself and others. And this is how deepfakes are made, but this is also how a pretty wide variety of interesting media can be made as well. So we found this very liberating for theatrical, for music performance, and also for virtual worlds, for metaverse media, VR, all of those things as well.
All right. Oscar, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, that was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. I guess this is going to ring the same bell that the last couple of questions or comments. In terms of, I suppose, the normalization and the, the making it acceptable to use AI tooling in artistic or production, do you think that's going to happen at, where's the groundswell going to happen? It's going to be like a bunch of individuals, and there's going to be just enough of like a critical mass of people that like are doing it where it becomes normalized, or will it become through more policy set by organizations, more efforts and initiatives by like big art groups to try to normalize the tooling? Because I don't see a lot of, like, the salon is one thing, but recently, or like maybe 6 months ago, we had like the concept artists, like a concept artist field that like they were getting they were going to get someone to go to Washington and actually like lobby for them on behalf of like trying to get legislation to protect concept artists from being displaced. So in your opinion, is it going to be just enough people doing AI related stuff to normalize it, or is there going to be like broader conversations that take place amongst trade groups to really kind of like make sure that it's okay and copacetic for people to create with these new tools. Blah, 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 blah.
It seems like every trade group is now having this conversation because it's showing up at the conferences, it's showing up in the galleries, it's showing up, you know, at events like Comic-Con. Are you going to have AI artists on the floor, right? It's everywhere. I suspect every industry is going to keep facing it until they make a decision one way or the other. I don't think solutions like what the WGA is proposing are going to work. It doesn't make sense to tell writers they can't use the best tool for writing ever created. Like it makes no sense, but it is, I understand why it's a self-preservation tactic. It just doesn't work. So I suspect we're going to end up with what we already have, millions of people already using these tools. That cat is out of the bag, right? That llama has a whole llama farm that she has made. So I'm okay hanging out on the llama farm. I'm cool with them, especially the open source nerds. I would say the Hinton piece people mentioned earlier and the moat. The key to that to note is that most professionals who were guiding investment in this space have realized that open source is going to eat investment. OpenAI wasn't sure that that was going to happen, right? They moved from a nonprofit model to a for-profit model, only to find that, yeah, no, it's there's no real dominance long-term. No one can predict it. So we'll see. We'll see. I will say currently of my favorite LLMs, I'm a big fan of Claude. I like playing with Claude. I would encourage you to go to poe.com if you have not tested a couple of different language models side by side. And if you're interested in doing the exact same thing on open source image generation, Catbird AI is a really fun one. And you can go and test like 12 different image generators on the same prompt at the same time.
What is that? Catbird?
Catbird. And my band will have our website out in 2 weeks with our first single drop. That's Oracle's AI as well. But yeah, I'm just setting up the social media sites now. So that, as you know, takes a little bit of time when we're dealing with a new band.
What were the language models?
The language models were
Claude.
Claude.
Is one of my favorites.
If you go to poe.com, you can play POE. You can also make your own chatbots there, which are cool.
And Bard is really great if you want something that is attributable, because it gives you now links to its research. So if you're trying to use a language model for search with attribution, use Bard.
All right, thank you for that. I have a question regarding your prompt crafting. I'm wondering if you're noticing if you use any specific techniques per platform. Like, do you use a different technique for Midjourney than you do for Stable Diffusion, than you do for all of your other tools? And if so, maybe you could speak to what those techniques are.
Yes, I frequently experiment, like I said, first in Midjourney, but I also use a tool called Prompter Guide, which I'm going to put in the URLs right now or in the chat. This gentleman named Shane developed this freemium, free to donate and use Google Sheet, which will take your Midjourney prompts and turn them into Stable Diffusion prompts for different models. Oh, wow. It will also track them, will help you keep track of which snippets you're going back to, right? So sometimes if I'm developing an art style, I will keep specific snippets that I reuse over and over and over again to create a world. So I would say Prompter Guide is one of those wonderful under-realized tools that was developed by the community in relatively open source space. But that helps me, for example, when the new version of Stable Diffusion comes out, make sure that my syntax and the way I'm dealing with weighted measures, for example, is going to work, because some of these things do change from version to version. Stable Diffusion and Midjourney both have had these kind of gaps in how they release these things. So it can be hard to keep up with what version is going to do what you need. I will say I frequently go back to Midjourney v4 for things like children's animation styles versus photorealism in v5. And so you get to know Midjourney is great for art in v4, illustration in v4, photorealism in v5. Stable Diffusion, if you want the photorealism, go to the XL beta. So but it takes a lot of time and sort of testing with these different models. Auto 1111 now allows for detailed in painting and being able to really refine every aspect of a piece. So I will often start in something like Midjourney and end in Auto 1111.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Jane, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, kind of going back to a comment you made, sort of, I don't want to say like getting attacked by the creative community, but maybe some animosity. One of the questions that keeps coming up in our meetups and in our speakers is like, what makes art? What makes AI generated art? And if you're making it on a machine, how is it creative? And I'm just kind of wondering, you know, if you could speak to that a little bit. What would you say to the people out there who say it's not art?
Well, I've been a fine artist of a sort for 3 decades, going on 4 now. I tend to value art as a process, not a product. So for me, the art is in the iteration, the discovery, the exploration. Frequently, I will be generating with groups like kids, right? And so the art is in how we engage with the tool. I love having kids give me prompts and then creating from those wild, imaginative, like their imaginations are in a completely different place than mine, right?
Yeah, totally.
So using Promptcraft as an invitation to engage in public in more playful ways, and then allowing that to inform how we see the patterns that connect us, right? So I was able to connect with a whole bunch of kids about the metaverse because they wanted to prompt things that look like the movie Free Guy, right? We had to have our conversation to get to the story flow to realize, oh, we have this shared language of the virtual space together, and we wanted to create in that space together. It took some discovery to find the language for where we want to meet. When I first started in playing with generative tools, it was because I was a part of the Buckminster Fuller Institute Design Science Studio. I was very interested in creating these protopian futures, and I knew someone who was exploring AI models, and I asked about biomimicry and where these models were in terms of recognizing the patterns in nature that we know support regenerative life. So Buckminster Fuller, for example, knew that domes were a wonderful living environment and created a number of different domes from those ideas, right? So I was curious where his ideas were being busted out into generative models. I found those people and I did the research with them. So we took thousands of crystal images and used those to inform where some of our image generators are today. For me, it's about pattern recognition. That's the long answer short. I love finding what connects us, and the generative tools help us identify sometimes where we connect at a deeper level around insight and vision and things that we've only dreamed about but can't necessarily find words for. So it's interesting to watch our subconscious sort of show up on the screen in some way, whether that's images or writing or video or any other media.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think the little art that I've created is just amazing how like a very small prompt can like just depict what's in my head. So yeah, as a creative, like you said, a lot of words that resonated with me. So thank you.
It's wonderful when it inspires you, right? Yeah. If it moves you, then it's doing something interesting. Sometimes I do commissions of people who passed away. So I had a child who passed away, and I did this in order to help my ex see where our son would be now at age 25. And I've done this for people who are passing away so that they could see their grandkids grow up, right? And that's a powerful type of transmission that I have some training as a chaplain, and I've done weddings and funerals. So I was able to try and find a language around doing this work with people that respects the heart when this comes, because often these are places deep within us that we don't know necessarily how to share, and now we have tools to do that. Wow. It's fascinating how that works. But realistically, what does that involve? That involves Midjourney and using blend tools and really bringing a vision together with existing art, photos, and other inspirations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Roger, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, getting back again to the sort of tensions between artists and some of the sort of infighting, as it were. Do you think, if not consciously, but subconsciously, there's sort of a tribalism around whether people are working in primarily visual versus language arts? And for instance, photographers and other visual artists who think of themselves as working completely in a non-language domain are uncomfortable with the idea that people can now apply language-based thinking, language-based creativity, for instance, in the domain of prompt crafting, to a field they used to think of as being completely separate from that. And you're sort of blurring the line between completely visual thinking in domains and language in a way that is, I think, is fantastic. But people who are really deeply entrenched in that might be uncomfortable with having those boundaries that are eroded.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. We are deeply steeped not only in dystopianism but in dualism. And so we expect things to be black and white, either or, the AI are definitely going to come and kill us, because that's the tropes we have carried all the way through our creative process here. So it is hard to basically ask people to bust out of that and create something different, maybe a new paradigm for collaboration that does blur the lines, that isn't just one field or the other, that happens to include all of them. Someone earlier mentioned, as we were doing our intros, they mentioned that they were a specialist in their field, and that focus tends to keep them rather heads down and not necessarily able to explore all of these other elements. What we're finding is that we need both the specialist, but to have some time to be a generalist, to have some time to experiment, or to have some time to collaborate and jam with other specialists in related but different domains, right? What you're doing here, the salon, is a form of that cross-disciplinary, multidisciplinary approach to collaboration, so that the videographer, the music maker, the photographer, the writer can all find each other and learn from each other. I think we're all going to have to work this way, whether it's in Discord channels or in person, in order to sort of get a broader handle, not just on the language engineering challenge, because prompt engineering is really about language engineering at the end of the day, and that is a whole field. There's a lot that wants to come out of that. Obviously, computer scientists, NLP, and all these other things are going there, but there's a lot that we will discover along the way about how language works and about how we communicate that we're just starting to scratch the surface of right now. I'm amazed every time I do a new prompt and I'm like, whoa, that word means that to you? I'm fascinated with the breadth of collective intelligence and what it's bringing into our lives. This sense of deep connectedness at the end of the day, and that we are here because of mutual value, not just individual creative value.
All right, thanks for that. Terry, you have a question or comment?
I do. First and foremost, oh my God, your work is stunning. It is just absolutely gorgeous. So I'm not sure what question I want to ask first, but let's go with a more technical one. I saw you do some video too. Can you talk a little bit about those AI tools?
Yeah. So I'm making a series of music videos right now to support the new album, and I started using tools like Deforum and Kyber, KAIBER.ai is one tool that I can absolutely recommend. That is making some of those beautiful sort of Stable Diffusion painted versions of an image, You start with an image, and then it can work a whole piece around that. The other piece I showed you from the ISS, the Hollow Art, is using a tool called Augie, which is at AugX Labs or meetaugie.com. Augie is a video sort of suite in the cloud. It just came out on Product Hunt in the last week, but I happen to be in the private beta for the last few months. They're a wonderful team, and these folks came from more traditional media like Warner Brothers and big companies, and so they understood why YouTubers and teachers and anyone who's got a brand needs to make video fast. And so what they've created is something that is already pre-licensed content that you can just kind of roll with and get your videos done super quickly, like the informational stuff primarily. But they're a wonderfully kind and good collaborative team. And I would say the big thing to note with all of these earlier startup teams especially is that they are very accessible on their Discord channels. So if you have feedback, whether it's a noticed bias that's a problem for you, or just ways they can improve, generally these teams are super available on Discord and are willing to talk you through a process, right? So if you want to get a hold of the Augie team, go to the Discord channel for AugX Labs. They're fantastic. Many of the teams that are not necessarily in the open source Hugging Face world, but that have a product are going to give you a little bit of customer service, but it is going to happen on the Discord channel if you're trying to experiment and fine tune as you're trying to learn these tools.
Oh, that's great. Now, the other question is more philosophical. You mentioned like AI and human, and where's the intersection going to meet? Because with Singularity University and all that, I'm sure you in some foresight, I hear you mention foresight in your background too.
I've worked with a lot of those interesting groups over the years, and I love being a world creator and a sci-fi futurist of sorts. The new album is probably the best place I can point you in terms of lyrical thinking on these ideas. All of the tracks that we've written for the new album at Oracles is specifically on this topic, sort of where do we meet in terms of the human nature, what is considered machine, but that really isn't fully separate from us anymore, right? So this is a new way to think of non-dualism and interconnectedness and symbiosis when we think of ourselves as part of a whole with nature and with the digital life of many different lives we will find. I personally don't anthropomorphize these tools right now, and I see a lot of folks going that route. So I will encourage you to maybe not think about the tools as beings, but as more like tools with a little bit of awareness to them, like having a really good weather station times 1,000 in your kit. I have found where a lot of folks will typically go wrong, both in terms of development and also sometimes in ethical engagement and consent. It often starts with personification. So one thing I would be encouraging you to avoid is actions that personify your tools in ways that might be unhealthy. There are lots of people using GPT-4 as a coaching mechanism, and that's a different thing. But if you find that some of your experiments are leading to either unhealthy attachments or to toxic engagements, break them off and don't encourage other people to go that route either. I've seen a fair amount of public engagement in that way, and it's really pretty gross to see. So don't be those guys.
Reminds me of Replica and what's happened over there.
Yeah, and I can see where that and the dating tools that are out there now are super useful for people, right? We are hardwired to want to connect with other humans, and yet we often feel like we're not very good at it. So of course we want to use our tools to get better at it. Should we be transparent about how we use our tools? Probably, because honesty tends to lead to better relationships long term. Are tools currently being designed to encourage transparency and honesty? No. not so much.
All right, thank you for that. Ron Morris, you have a comment or question?
Okay, so I first of all, thank you. Amazing, Evo and Kyle for putting this on, and the sharing and the generosity. And I just don't know when you sleep, because you've got so much going on. And I feel wholly inadequate sort of participating here, but I'll do it anyway. So I have we do a lot of these videos, these short form videos, and so I've been playing with all the ChatGPT to help create the stories and the scripts, but I'm wondering if you know of, is there any software out there yet that will actually kind of bring it all together, or actually pull the images and the video scenes in together to create those scenes based on the script and the story and all that? Is there something out there that I'm not aware of that kind of pulls it all together?
There are a handful of tools that do pieces of that for specific markets. So there is a packaging tool for films in development that will piece those elements together and give you a package that you can go out and seek a green light and investment for. I use storyboarding tools like 10 Zebra as well. The one I mentioned earlier, Meet Augie, does do voiceover, video. You can piece together images in Stable Diffusion and elsewhere in there. So that is very close to a multimodal production element, but it doesn't quite fully auto-generate everything. It will match clip by clip to your script, and then you can basically just go and trade out the clips you don't like. So Augie is probably the closest thing to that right now that's available for the public to use. There are some things coming that I can't talk about yet, but one of them will be mentioned at Google I/O tomorrow.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's just, it's funny. I feel a bit of an addiction to this. I don't know if that's healthy. Because as I mentioned earlier, I use it for everything, and I'm trying to, I don't know if anybody else is experiencing this, but I have a team that I lead, and there's even a little bit of resistance, I mean, in the team, because everybody, do I use these tools, or do I continue to go, do things the way I've done them in the past? Is that, and so, and my team, part of what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help elevate the team. I'm trying to help them learn how to use these tools, because a lot of them are like in the Philippines, where they could really utilize these tools to really take things to another level. And so I'm just trying to, just learn all I can and try to help them utilize these tools, help us as a company, help us. And it's just so much fun. I mean, it's such an exciting time to be alive right now.
It can be really fun to just hang out and have a beer and collaborate and try things together. And so I think what Kyle and everyone here at the salon is doing is really smart in terms of just getting people together to experiment. So making it a low bar, and giving your staff the freedom to engage or not engage. I do a fair number of private workshops inside companies, and yeah, it's somewhere between like 1 in 3 or every other person will be ready to jump in, and the other person will be fearful, reticent, or angry about the technology, right? And all of those are fair responses. They're based on some sort of lived experience. So I try not to give too much push if I sense that someone's resistant right now. That's their empath and where they're at.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I hope you build a small little collab team of the folks who really do want to do it with you, because
I think
especially on the video side, there's a whole bunch of cool stuff coming, and it reduces so much time needed in terms of production of new assets, right? Your content development.
We can be so much more creative. I mean, we can be, we can get our message out there so much more. And it's yeah, it's just, I look at it as a plus plus. I don't see, you know, because at the end of the day, we're still using creativity. We're still using critical thinking. We're making these tools do what we want them to do.
And this can also provide a sense of, example, safety and anonymity. If you're a public-facing organization where it's not appropriate to feature the people you actually work with, or you're an educational body and it's not appropriate to feature your students, right? You can take a tool like Runway. Runway ML is does video as well as other things. You could take Kyber and basically anonymize through what we call restyling. So you're taking the video and putting it through a different style filter. But that gets rid of distinguishing factors that would be identifying factors, right? There's a lot of potential use cases for that haven't fully been explored in public yet.
Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Nice to meet you, by the way, all of you. This has been fun.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Gray, you're up. You have a question or comment?
Yes, Evo, this is amazing. Thank you very much again for your time. You have so much incredible experience, and I can't believe how long you've been, working on AI. I'm going to start calling you a doctor in prompting based on, what I've heard here tonight. I mean, you're incredible. And what I wanted to ask you is, I'm working on building an AI generator that's more on the intuitive side for non-artists. And we're looking at training different things in different styles. And I wanted to just ask you, I mean, if I, let's say, hired you as a consulting job to say, I want these 5 styles, could you develop those styles for me that I could use on my image generator? And I'm just throwing it out there is to see what's possible.
Yeah, so again, like creating any other collection, creating a new art style might involve creating hundreds or even thousands of images in that art style and then developing that training set to train the model on, right? Okay. That's the basic process. I have done projects like that before, but not specifically that type of project. So in theory, yes, and in practice, that's not something I've actually done yet. I am doing something quite similar, however, with our new album in terms of creating a large library of content that is designed to accompany a large multimedia project with 10 music videos and a book and all of these other pieces. That is, it's like we're finding a new art style in itself. I will say the tools that you might want to consider looking at, Kyber does this already, and a couple of other tools like Runway also have little ways in which they've done this. Leonardo does a little bit of it, Leonardo.ai, and Scenario.com, which I use for training for game assets. What they've done is super simplified it so that you're literally just clicking radio buttons to get the style you want. It's dumb. It's super simple, but it's fantastic for an 18-year-old who's trying to make assets for their first game.
Right.
So what I'm finding is that most people over the age of like, I don't know, somewhere in the millennials don't have a great sense of art history. They weren't taught art history. They didn't get a lot of art history classes growing up. So all of the art style language is almost always held by people who've either gone to art school or are over the age of 30 something.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And then I just wanted to ask you, so one of the issues that I'm trying to solve, which I don't think there is any tools out there to solve that, is, when working with big brands, let's say it's a Disney or a Universal, they're going to want some protections and things like that. So they're not scraping things and they're not giving, Mickey Mouse five ears or whatever it is. And I know that there's a lot of do nots you can put in the background. But are you familiar with any of these tools or anything like that that you've heard that's coming out that I could reassure some of these big brands that, yeah, well, we can do this for you?
I've certainly heard of a handful of tools that are designed to meet that problem space, but whether they actually accomplish it, yeah, it's going to require some road testing.
Yes.
And some real UX. And my partner comes from a UX background as well. And what we've noticed is that there needs to be a lot more UX folks doing the real iterative testing work at this stage. So I'm excited to see quite a few of you from that discipline here, bringing a little bit more rigor to how the rest of us do this kind of testing work in public.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Kyle, you're up next.
So first off, thank you so much. I want to check in with you. I know I just saw in the comments you've been up since 4 a.m. If you're willing to go a bit longer, I would love to have you. If not, I am also cool with you just popping off and collapsing.
My phone is ringing, so let me go grab it.
Okay, terrific. I mean, this is just amazing. I mean, it's a lot of this generative AI stuff feels very new, and then interact with someone like Evo that's been doing it this long.
Making like hundreds of
Yeah.
images.
Yeah, just for
like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I was doing a lot with 20.
I think it's inspiring too that she has such a wealth of knowledge of the tools and really sees them as tools. Right? It's their tools, and they're here to help us further our own visions, our own creative ideas. And I think that's getting really lost in a lot of the discourse. This is really about tools, and it's really about our using the tools. We're using the tools, they're not using us. It's
the process of intentionality, right? I intend to do something. I intend to go in a certain direction. I've got these tools, and now I've got these remarkable tools. So
that's right. Yeah, I agree.
Are you good, Evo?
I have a guest arriving now, so I am going to step away because I have given, this is my 59th talk of the year, and I've been up since 4 a.m. I'm working with a European team right now. So actually my friend who's coming leads, as I mentioned earlier, responsible AI work at Mozilla. So we're going to have a deep dive on ethics and the work that she's doing, including a consent-based framework called The Terms We Serve With. So we're going to be doing a few more sort of public talks about ethical engagement with generative media. That's going to happen as well at AWE. If any of you are from the AR, VR, XR industry and want to show up for that, that's going to be at the end of this month. And I'd really love to stay in touch with you. If you have any questions, feel free to please reach out to me. It's really good to meet all of you.
Wow, this has been absolutely amazing. Golf claps for all of our guests, but I think, beyond golf claps for you, Evo, this has been just remarkable.
Wow. Evo, you're an inspiration. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Really, brilliant.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Great. Have a good night.
Wow. Mind blown.
Wow. Yeah. I would say, if you're online, pop your hand up if you want to say something. I don't know. So a couple of things. So if you're new to the salon, generally we've had 2 speakers, just because that's how we started. And there was always this sense that, there wasn't enough time. And so I'm really glad we had as much time as we did with Evo. So I like this idea of 1 speaker and really getting to engage with it. Good Lord, there was just so much there. Like her knowledge just on the tools alone. I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 10 tools that I'd either heard of or whatever. But like she's like, yeah, this one's good, that one's good. It's like, okay, that's on the list to check out. So
amazing,
just amazing. So I would love to hear anyone's thoughts here in the room or online.
Looks like I saw Lee Chazen. You had your hand up first, but it went down. Do you still have something that you want to ask or comment?
Well, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I am apologies. I am late to this meeting. I am West Coast time calling from Northern California, and I am busy building I come from the world of education, and I'm very much into the idea of having 7 ChatGPT prompts that will then create a game, using AI tools that the students can then play out over the course of possibly 2 semesters, and it's almost done. Because I was so blown away the last 3 months experimenting with ChatGPT and AI that I wanted to see if it could create 400 questions covering 20 time spans, 7 areas of knowledge, and 6 levels of learning. It's an 800-word prompt, and it produced everything that I needed. And I just thought, well, students can alter the prompt and come up with their own variations on questions and the game. And it just seemed to me that, I hope the tone here so far has been like very much friendly towards this new technology and not taking the kind of dystopic view, because I'm very open to how this is going to absolutely change education, to where students will see this as kind of like a learning or a thought partner catered to their specific type of intelligence. And so I really just popped into the meeting to see if the conversation had gone that way at all, or if anyone's interested in continuing this discussion, because I'm finding very few people in the field to talk to about this yet. And everything just seems so new.
Yeah, you've come to the right place.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so we're curious for AI enthusiasts. We'll definitely talk about ethical stuff. That prompt sounds amazing. I don't know if it's something you'd be willing to share, but if so, I would encourage you to join our Discord. So join the Discord and engage with the community. I would love to learn more about that and have you engage. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Sounds remarkable.
find it very inspiring what you just suggested about not just writing the 800-word prompt, but then allowing the students to come in and iterate it and adjust it. I feel like prompt crafting has become sort of a, people have their prompts that they're guarding, and will share information, but the engineering becomes kind of people keep it really close. And the thought that the deliverable isn't just the art, but also the prompts you're crafting as well, really just blew my mind. I hadn't heard that, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think you'll find this group very collaborative and open.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, it just popped into my meetup queue for some reason. Even though I'm in California, it popped into my meetup queue, and I need to get, I went to school in Colorado, so I'm
in Boston. We're all over.
Oh, you're all over. Okay, I didn't know if this was just a local group. That's good to know. At this point, it's kind of the merger of education and business, and I'm not sure where to go with this. I did a YouTube podcast on the topic, and it took off. So apparently, people need to know how this works in education, and I pretty much gave it away. I do have it up for sale for like $3 or something, on top base, because I would like to figure out how to thrive in this new economy somehow.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing. That's
yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Please join and check out there's a LinkedIn group for the AI Salon, and there's a document there that talks about who we are, why we are, what our values are. So
yeah.
If you want to learn more about it, but please join the Discord and just engage with the community. Yeah, I think you'll find this is a place where we can all play together and figure a lot of this stuff out.
Right.
We're here every other Tuesday night, and we start at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And we have a pretty interesting schedule that we do for 2 hours. And
that's perfect.
The beginning part, we introduce each other and get to know each other a little bit. So come for the whole salon. It's fantastic. We're happy to have you here.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Roger, you have a comment or question?
Yeah, so I found the process that Evo was describing of generating, this big basically portfolio of images, which I gather there's a lot of curation involved, deciding which of the ones she really feels are representative of the results she wants, and then using that to train another model to produce the final output. Very interesting, and it's related to a lack in at least Midjourney, the one I think twice and most of my time with, that I've noticed, which is, when it generates its four, guesses based on your prompt, each one of those is sort of a different read on what you said. It's a different guess at what you had in your mind when you wrote the prompt. And I would like to be able to say to it, okay, that one, that's whatever ambiguities what I said you're resolving. I like the way you did that. Now let's take it from there. But I don't know any way to say the words I said in my prompt. I want you to interpret them that same way and then be able to build on that. And it seems like that's sort of, it seems like there's the steps you're doing that shouldn't be necessary. You shouldn't need to train another model. You should be able to go back to the model that generated those images in the first place and say, hey, these are the ones I like. Make stuff like that. It seems like this extra step of having to build a whole new model just to constrain it to produce the stuff you like in the other model. Clearly, the other model is capable of producing that stuff. It just sounds like it's too difficult to coerce it via prompting to do what you want. It's easier to pick out the things you like, train a whole new model that doesn't know how to do anything else, and then work with that. But it seems like it would be so much better if it was easier to just get the original model to do what you wanted. To give it that feedback of, oh, when I said blah 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 blah, and you guessed lots of things, that's now you get me, right? It's fun to have this interactive process where you can teach the model when it's understanding and when it's not, and then build on that. It seems like, I go to all this effort to iterate on a prompt and get the, and pick the choices to get what it wants, but it feels like at the end, all that effort's lost. I mean, the next thing I go to do, I'm starting from scratch every time. I mean, there's a little bit of learning of the prompt crafting involved, but it's not learning anything at all about how to read me. And that's sort of frustrating. It seems like we should be able to fix that. We should be able to get to the point where there's a way to have it learn how to interpret your prompts in the way you mean them.
Yeah. I think that idea of predictability is one of the next frontiers. And yeah, I've thought about that for characters where you generate this thing, you're like, oh, I want to take that character and put it in lots of different worlds. And there's ways you can kind of do that, but it's a little janky. So that would be a good next step. So awesome.
Well, all right, I guess we'll finish up with Oscar. You have something you'd like to contribute?
Yeah, just listening to Evo and hearing her story and her experience, I'm wondering how many people have been neck deep in AI for decades now, and we're completely ignoring them, or we have de-emphasized their voices and their experience because right now ChatGPT is the new hotness. And we had what's his name who spoke when I first joined it. I think his name was also starts with an R, but
Richard Boyd.
Yeah, exactly. And his perspective seemed radically different from all the academic stuff that I'm not different, but like his point of view, it seems different from all the academic papers that I'm reading, and also all of like the narratives I'm seeing. And the more that I'm seeing old heads who have been doing AI for ages and who are not approaching this as like, oh yeah, I've been doing this forever, like the last 11 months. Like the people who've been doing this for years and decades, I don't know if we're actively actually listening to them, or if they're buried in academia or working for Microsoft and OpenAI and Google. But like, I'm not hearing their voices, and I'm just curious about that. If you're feeling that same way in retrospect.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's, one of the reasons I wanted to have Evo on was because she's been at this for a while. And it was interesting because she's been very much in the AR and VR, the building world for a long time. But she didn't talk much about that. She talked, just about generative AI. So I think it's we need to seek it out because, I think people that have been in it for a while, like I sense when Richard Boyd talked, there's I think very justifiable sense of, I would call it quite bitterness, but like, he's like, yeah, you're all excited about this.
I'd be disappointed too. I totally get it. But it's still, he's a font of information and just philosophical and just like those, like the thinking around it. And I am not like, I don't see that kind, like, maybe it's just experience, but like, I'm seriously questioning now who we're not hearing in these conversations and like who's been speaking for ages.
Well, maybe that's something for us to play with the salon, and try to cast a wider net and get some of those voices in here to participate.
I mean, that's standard human behavior, though. I mean,
Yeah.
people thought the Earth was the center of the universe, but you had people crying that it wasn't.
Right.
Then you had Leonardo da Vinci create a flying machine that they all thought he was insane. So it's like, I think it's just kind of standard. I mean, the concept of the internet was created long before it actually made it to the public. And all we actually value is the people who actually made things a reality or found ways to use it, rather than the people who just dreamt of it happening. So it's all about the execution rather than maybe just the dream world. So, I mean, your thought is valid, but I think that's standard human behavior. We've been doing it forever.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Well, that's a great way to end it. Thanks for that comment here. Everyone online, thank you so much as always. We'll see you again 2 weeks from now on Tuesday. As Leah said earlier, the Discord rocks. Go participate in the Discord so we can maintain this conversation in between these meetings. It's actually a really important part of the community. So please do that. And everyone here in Denver, if you want to, we're going over to Zeppelin Station, which is just right up 35th, and hanging out there if you want to hang out and geek out more, because why wouldn't you want to talk about this for more time? Anyway, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Great meeting. Great to see you.
Thanks, Leah.
Nice meeting
Bye.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Leah.
Is anyone staying for the after party? Or
Yes.
Oh, the online after party? You're welcome to hang out.
okay. Yeah, if anyone wants to help debrief me on what I missed, but that's okay.
But yeah, we're just
All right. See y'all later.
interested.